everyone, my name's Emma. Today we are talking about science fiction, the history of books, and how that's all connected. When it comes to choices and decisions, the ones that we make every single day will help us create the world that we want to live in. So we talk about here on this channel, how can we look at the world around us and bring in the lessons that exist all around us and create the life that we want to live. There's a fantastic documentary called Google and the World Brain, which looks into the creation of Google Books and the issues that occurred based off how Google tried to approach creating Google Books and how it ultimately did create it. And this is based off of the phenomenon and the science fiction book called The World's Brain. I believe that is the name of the book. It may not be, that may just be a part of the science fiction book that addressed this, but The World Brain is a centralized place where you can find the information of absolutely anything. And when you think about Google, that's pretty much what you see it as. But Google wanted to encompass every book that it could get its hands on as part of their Google search. Now, Google has created a phenomenal place of knowledge and continues to elaborate and create all the time and expand. I recently found out about Google Arts and Culture. Check it out. It's very interesting, and it does encompass a lot of artwork all over the world, and it can bring you to different places and you can look at different museums. So I wonder if any issues that Google Books had when it was created, that also occurred with Google Arts and Culture. I don't know, I just found out about it very recently, so I don't really know that much about it. But within the documentary, they talk about how Google just started taking books and photocopying them and adding them to Google Books without the consent of the authors and therefore infringing on the copyright of these books. When a book is created and a copyright is associated with a book, it means that distribution of the contents of that book can only be done with the permission of the publishing house and the author. And Google did not do that. They did not go to each individual publisher and author and ask for their permission. They simply just started taking books and had many people photocopying them and adding them to Google Books. Now, if you've ever used Google Books, you can see that they won't give you the full book, but you can search words within the book, and therefore you can get a good amount of the books if you know which words to search for depending on the book that you're looking for. And there was a lot of other issues that were created with Google Books besides that 6 million books were copied and placed onto Google Books without the permission and the consent of the authors, but also that not every book is written and read the same way. Every book was scanned from left to right, and you can only get access to the pieces of the book from left to right, whereas there's many books that are read from up to down and from right to left. So actually having it only done in the way that you can read it from left to right doesn't make sense for many books, and that wasn't something that was considered. And because of Google trying to do this, and I'm sure they came from a good place wanting to do this, that's what the whole search engine is about, is creating access to technology, to information, to knowledge. They, however, are not a nonprofit that is doing this. They are a corporation that makes a lot of money off of doing this and is therefore hurting a lot of the authors that have not given their permission and their consent to do this. So over 6 million people were affected by this, and many more as more books are being added. And because of that, we are brought into what does this world of copyright look like? What is the world going to look like? But how can we figure out what the world will look like if we don't look at how it looked before? And there was a very interesting on the Google Arts and Culture article where they went into the history of books and the written word. And whether you love reading or hate reading, you like listening to audiobooks or reading ebooks, the world of the written word is one that has existed since the 4th millennia BCE. And there was the version of books that we use today created in the 2nd to the 5th century. So the way that we understand books today hasn't really changed that much. We've just changed the format, the covers, the different languages within them, but the way that people interpreted knowledge told stories has really been consistent across the years. The access to it, however, has changed drastically, and the ability of people to create their own books and their own writing and add to their own storylines by creating their own books has absolutely changed. And there was another book that they mentioned that talked about a world where someday there's going to be machines that print all across the world, print books on demand. And that is exactly what Amazon has done. You can publish a book on Amazon and they will print on demand to whoever orders your book. So there's no need to be printing mass amounts of books without knowing and being able to gauge how many people actually want it. Amazon will print your book on demand if you decide to print through Amazon and to post your book through Amazon. There is many human rights issues associated with both of these platforms, both Google and Amazon, but we cannot deny how much they have changed the world and how much access they have created to knowledge that wasn't able to be there before. So when we look at everything that's going on in the world, we have to be careful to understand what is actually happening and that there's always going to be trade-offs. There's not one system that's going to be perfect. There's not one way that we're going to get to the right path immediately. We're going to have to fail along the way. And though Amazon and Google do have their downfalls, a lot of people are able to get access to information, get access to resources, to products that they wouldn't be able to otherwise. There's many people in the world who want to publish books who wouldn't be able to unless Amazon had these platforms and other self-publishing houses where you can print books on demand. You are able to create your own book and you're able to add your own stories to the world of knowledge that exists. I encourage you to watch Google and the World Brain. There is, I believe, still lawsuits trying to deal with this. I haven't watched a documentary in a few years now, but it was quite eye-opening to see it and to see how much the world has changed in access to knowledge, and that we have so much available at our fingertips that we can never really say, I didn't know what's going on, or I can't figure it out. Literally anything that we're interested in learning, we can find a YouTube video, a Google search, on Amazon, we can find it. It's so much more accessible. And with the accessibility to these resources, there comes a lot of issues with it. And the systems aren't perfect, but we cannot just always look at everything as yes or no, black and white, because the world doesn't exist that way. There's always something that is being compromised. And of course, it should never be humans that are compromised. It should never be human intellect, human compassion, human intelligence that is compromised. But there's a trade-off in everything. And that is why we're interested in perspectives here on this channel. It's how can we look at the world and see these different perspectives and understand that they exist at the same time. Amazon allows many people to gain access to products while at the same time may not be the greatest thing for the environment. Those things are true at the exact same time. Google created a beautiful platform, but through Google Books, many people got access to books, while also a lot of people in the process were taken for granted or taken advantage of because they were not asked about the copyright. They were not included in the process and the decision of it. And I believe the Supreme Court actually became involved in the situation as well. So I'll leave it linked down below, the trailer, and you can choose to watch it as well. But that's really the point of all of this. This isn't to say this one's right or this one's wrong. It's to gain perspective, because through perspectives we can start to understand the bigger picture of what's happening and the different ways that people view what's going on. And all of these viewpoints exist at the same time. The way we all view the world exists at the exact same time. And therefore, we need to be aware of that and understand, well, I see the world this way and somebody else sees it this way. How can we have a conversation where we can communicate and get to a point? So there isn't just one side yelling at the other, no one's being heard, and the issue isn't actually addressed. There's no change that's happening, there's no forward motion, there's just the back and forth that isn't helpful to anyone. And if we look at these different documentaries and these different books, these different pieces of entertainment, we can start to realize there's so many different perspectives on the world, and all these perspectives exist at the same time, and all of them are limited. Not one of these perspectives is ever going to encompass all of them. And even if in some weird way we were able to encompass every single perspective on Earth, that would still be a limited perspective because there's other perspectives that exist in the world. There, we would have a different perspective if we were on the moon, if we were on Jupiter, we would have different perspectives. And who's to say life doesn't exist somewhere else? And even if it doesn't, there is still versions of perspectives that we can't achieve often or even ever. Doesn't mean that those perspectives suddenly disappear. So really, whenever you're faced with information, whenever you're faced with, well, this is a terrible thing, you should never use it, plastic is terrible, all of these different things, we have to realize the context that they're being said in and understand as many perspectives about that as possible. If people are saying different things, we need to look at all of the arguments set forth. If somebody is saying, well, veganism is terrible, or someone's saying veganism is amazing, it's the greatest thing, it's going to change and save the entire world, these are very different perspectives, and we need to take a step back, create some distance between what is being said and what we actually believe in, and put a distance between all of these and objectively be able to look at what's going on and be able to make logical decisions and choices without emotions or past events getting in the way of what we're doing. Now, this brings up a lot of other work that we have to do. We have to figure out, how do we emotionally react to different perspectives, different thoughts? How many thoughts and perspectives that are conflicting to the ones that we believe in are we exposed to on the daily basis, on a weekly basis? Or are we constantly being fed information that exactly correlates to what we already believe in? And if we are always being fed information that we already believe in, we're never learning, we're never growing, we're never expanding. And that's really the point, is to see things from all these perspectives so that you can make and move through this world in a way that is better suited for you, because you actually have more information to deal with. Because the more data that you get in, you can make better decisions, you can make better choices. And at the end of the day, no matter what choice you make, you will never know what the path of the other choice would have been. Even if you are saying, oh, I wish I didn't go to college, or I wish I did go to college, in your life, you will never know the other path when you made that decision. When you make a decision, you choose, and the other path disappears. It doesn't exist in this arbitrary world. You can always choose to go back to college if that's something that you want to do, but you will never know how that would have affected you if you had gone at the time that you believed you should have. You'll never know that, and that's okay. We can always make decisions, and we can make new ones once we have more information. And that's the point. That's the point of what Google has been trying to do, to give us access to information and knowledge. And it's up to us what we decide to do with it. Are we actually reading the books? Are we actually deciding to watch the documentaries, to watch the movies and the shows that are projecting this new perspective into our lives so that we can know what to do with it? If we're always presented with the exact same option, we can't choose things. But if we're presented with multiple perspectives, we can begin to see that there's actually more options out there, and that we don't have to pick the same thing over and over again. If there's a variety of things that you're interested in, that's the best thing, is to continue to look into all of these different options that exist, find the things you're interested in, find the things that you agree with, that you disagree with. But you won't know what you agree and disagree with if you're never exposed to what's out there. So we have to expose ourselves to knowledge in any way that we can and in any forms, and not just expose ourselves and expose these perspectives to ourselves and to others, but to take the lessons of seeing these perspectives into our lives and making better decisions based off of the new information we've imported. So we talked a little bit about Google and the World Brain. Hope you check out the trailer at least, and as you watch these documentaries and read these books, understand that this is one perspective. And the more perspectives you get, the more you'll understand how narrow-sided pretty much every perspective is. It's literally just one snapshot at one moment in time of this person's perspective at that point in time. There's many people who've written books who have changed the way that they feel about that, or have expanded on the research, or they have written in a certain style and they want to change. None of us are constant beings. Even if we live in the same town forever, if we never move, if we are always around the same people, our minds are going to change throughout the years. They just are. Are they going to change for the better? That choice is yours. Which way is the choice that you make next going to take you? That path and that direction, that choice is up to you. And the more knowledge you have, the better your choices will be, because you're making more choices, because you have more options, and you're going to just be better off for it, because you're going to be able to find the things that you're actually interested in, and because of that, you will become the greatest version of yourself, and you choose that every single moment of every single day. So that is what your purpose is, to make these choices. Every choice brings you closer to who you want to be or further away. But you won't know who you want to be if you don't know more things, if you're not exposed to more perspectives and information. It seems to keep coming around to the same idea, right? The more knowledge you search for, the more interest you have in learning, the more you're going to be able to get closer to what you like, because you're exposed to more things that you could potentially like. We don't know unless we try, and that is what we have to do. It all begins with a choice. Hope you got something out of today's video. I will see you soon, but until then, have an amazing day.